Because I'm not going to talk about Ernest Holmes. I'm not going to talk about Judge Trord. I'm not going to talk about Emma Curtis Hopkins or any of that. No. I'm going to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart. About a galaxy a long time ago, very, very far away. In this case, it was Seattle, Washington in the late 60s. See, when I was growing up, my dad had a favorite saying. He would come in and he would say, "Come on, guys, let's go blow the stink off." Now, what that meant was that we were going to go out and we were going to do something fun. It might mean that we were going to take the .22s and go out and shoot cans and bottles. It might mean that we were going to go up to the mountains and cut some wood and build a bonfire and have s'mores. It might mean that we're going to go down to the beach and do some clamming and watch the tide come in. Or it might mean that we were going to go take the boat out and go water skiing and fishing, or tie the boat up to the log boom and watch the hydroplane races. Whatever it meant, blowing the stink off meant that we were going to go do something completely different, and we were going to leave our day-to-day life behind, if just for a little while. Meant we weren't going to answer the telephone, we weren't going to read our books, we weren't going to do our homework, we were going to just go out and enjoy ourselves. You see, my dad was a businessman. He was a salesman and he was a promoter, and he wasn't a 9-to-5 kind of guy. He was more like a 6 o'clock to 11 o'clock kind of guy. He'd get up, go to work, and quite often, by the time we went to bed, he wouldn't be home yet. So there were periods of time when we didn't get to see very much of him. In addition to this, my dad also took lots of business trips. So he'd be gone for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. But we always knew that when he came home and he was going to experience that thing that was called rest and relaxation, what he wanted to do was go blow the stink off. Now, there was something else about blowing the stink off that was really attractive, and that was usually when we would get done with doing this, the first thing that my mom would say was something like, "You guys smell, go hit the showers." So blowing the stink off meant doing things that were usually getting us really stinky. And for a 9-year-old, this was nirvana. In addition to this, I had 2 older brothers and an older sister. So when they did things, I wanted to do them. When they got into motorcycles, I wanted to get into motorcycles. When they got into the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, I wanted to get in the Beatles and Rolling Stones. When they went to school and learned how to read, I wanted to go to school and learn how to read. When they were doing advanced mathematics, so did I. Now, this served me really, really very well for the first 3 years I was in school. Because, when you go to school and you already know how to read, the ABCs are duck soup. And when you go to school and everybody else is reading, the cat and the dog are stopped. See Dick run. See Jane run. And you're reading, and they opened the door to the mausoleum. That kind of stuff was just really easy for me. So those first 3 years were just great, smooth sailing, until I hit the 4th grade. See, there were a couple things that happened in the 4th grade. The first one was I was still above everybody academically, and it wasn't very challenging. And because it wasn't very challenging, I was bored. And 2, I had a teacher who I despised, and I thought that she despised me. And so you mix boredom with dislike, and what do you get? You get disruption. My name is Bruce, and I'm a disruptor, especially in 4th grade. I got to know principal really, really well. I got to know him so well that I won't say that we were on first name basis, but Mr. Mike Van Pelt, wherever you are, I'm really sorry. 48 years later, and I can still remember the man's name. So I remember this one time when the week before, we'd had what is called an intervention. It wasn't just me and the principal, it was the principal, the school counselor, my teacher, my mom, and my dad on one side of the table, and I was on the other. Well, that didn't go that badly. But when I got home, and I got to go into my dad's room by myself, I was told in no uncertain terms that I was going to shape up and fly right, or there was going to be hell to pay. Now, for a 9-year-old on a 25-cent a week allowance, I sure as heck didn't know what hell was, and I sure didn't think I could afford to pay for it. So I decided that I was going to change, I just didn't know how. And for that next week in school, I was really trying to do my very best. No puns, no cracking jokes, no spitballs, no rubber bands, no funny noises at the back of the room, none of that stuff. I even swore off the little paper footballs and kicking them across the room with your finger, didn't do that. And I remember one morning, I was sitting there and I was bored. And about the only thing wrong that I was doing was I was reading a book within a book. Remember that old trick? You take a book, you put it in the book, you hold up the textbook like you're reading the textbook, and what you're really reading is Doc Savage. So that was about the only thing that I was doing wrong, but I didn't feel I was breaking the rules because I'd already read the textbook, and this would just be a reread, so it was okay. When the PA crackles to life.
Mrs. Arnhem, can you please send Bruce Byers to the principal's office?
What? But I'm not doing anything wrong, really. Come on, what's this about? I look up at my teacher, and she just rolls her eyes, nods her head to the door. And so I grab the books, and I start stacking them up. All the boys cackle, all the girls giggle, and I start to make that 10,000-mile trip to the principal's office. And it goes something like this. It's not fair! I don't know why I'm going to the principal's office. It's just not fair. I didn't do anything. And besides, if my dad finds out about it, there's going to be hell to pay. And just about that time, I turn the corner, and I go into the principal's office, and who's standing in front of me but my dad? Except he's not in a business suit. He's in a Pendleton shirt and jeans. And as soon as he sees me, a great big smile breaks out on his face, and he says, "Come on, good to see you, buddy. Come on, boy, let's go blow the stink off." I go from dejected to elated in 1.5 nanoseconds, just like that. I look at the principal, and he's kind of nodding his head. And he said, "Yeah, go ahead, take off, we'll catch up on Monday." Wait a minute. This is now Wednesday. He's saying I'm going to be back on Monday? What is going on? I didn't want to tell him that obviously that 2.5 days off was outside of every rule and regulation, but I didn't want to jinx it, so I just followed my dad out to the car. Except it wasn't the car. It was the pickup truck with the gem top on it. And in the back of the pickup truck, there was a whole bunch of groceries and a duffel bag that had clothes in it, my clothes, and my books. And on the outside of the duffel bag was a note that said, "Miss you, have a great time, love, Mom." Wow. That's pretty cool. So we went down to McDonald's and had a lunch together, and I asked my dad, well, where are the other guys? Where's my brothers? He said, this time it's just going to be me and you. Oh, yeah. So we go take the truck, and we go down to the marina, we unload it, we put all the stuff on the boat, and my dad says, why don't you cast off? Did I tell you that I had 2 brothers and an older sister, and I never got to do that? You know why? Because I got to sit in the back of the boat with a life vest on, and while they did all that. So sure, I'll cast off. We pull out of the slip, motor down Lake Washington, into Lake Union, to the locks, go through the locks, go into the Puget Sound. We get outside the Chicago harbor, or the Seattle harbor, and my dad says, I think it's time for you to be the helmsman. Why don't you be the helmsman on this trip? Did I mention that I had 2 older brothers and an older sister? I never got to steer the boat. I never got to operate the boat. But this time I did. Not only did I get to steer and operate the boat, but my dad showed me how to read a nautical chart. He showed me how to do an azimuth approach, how to do a back azimuth approach, how to read all the little hieroglyphs on the nautical chart so that you could figure out where you were going, how to take into consideration the wind and the current so that you would point the boat that way to arrive over there. This was 4.5 days of just blissful instruction. My dad had another ulterior motive as well. See, in all of this, he snuck in these conversations about how I was doing in school and why I felt certain things. These were kind of interspaced, but I do remember this one conversation that we had about my feelings towards my teacher. And it went something like, so why do you think that you don't like your teacher? Well, because she doesn't like me. Well, how do you know she doesn't like you? Well, she's got a really, really hard grading scale. Everybody else at A is a 90, and in her class it's a 95. Okay. Well, but doesn't that apply to everybody in the class? Well, yeah. So what you're saying is that she's a tough teacher, but does that really give you any indication of why you think she doesn't like you? Well, every time I talk to her, she acts like I'm doing something wrong. Well, do you ever bring problems to her that you need to have solved? No. So maybe every time when you are talking to her, you are doing something wrong. Well, yeah. So let me get this straight. You are saying that she doesn't like you because you think that she doesn't like you because you don't like her. Huh? All right, Wayne Dyer put it a little better way. What other people think about me isn't any of my business. He got that through to me, that the point was not that she disliked me, but I thought that she disliked me. And so my behavior was based upon that thought, not the reality of the situation. Anyway, I get home that Sunday night, and I'm one tired boy. And I know that we have succeeded in blowing the stink off, because the first thing that happens when my mom comes up to me and she goes, "Hi, honey, how are you? Oh, you smell. Go take a shower." And I was feeling something else. That something else was called serenity. See, we talked about things, and we'd done things that I hadn't done before, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. So when I got to school the next day, and we'd done the roll call, and we did the Pledge of Allegiance, and when the 6th grader showed up, and she said, and she had a little blue note. Now, in my elementary school, a blue note meant that you needed to go see either the counselor or the nurse. And a red note meant that you were going to go see the principal. So a blue note was kind of cool. You just got to get out of class. And I'd already figured out that I was probably going to have to pick up all the assignments that I'd missed for the 2.5 days I'd missed. So it wasn't a big deal. So I went down to the counselor's office. When I got in the counselor's office, it wasn't just the counselor. It was the counselor and the principal and 2 other teachers. And they said, basically, Mr. Byers, what we'd like is some of your help. You see, we have noticed that there are kids who are in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade who are really excelling at the standardized math. And what we would like to do is to place those kids into an accelerated math class, well, where you're going to be learning both pre-algebra and algebra. Would that be something you'd be interested in? Oh, yeah, I'd be interested in that because that's what my brothers are doing. Yeah. And then Mrs. Hester, who was the English or the language arts teacher and also the librarian, she said, and in addition to that, we have a couple kids who are in the 2nd and 3rd grade who are falling behind on their reading skills. And what we'd like you to do is to be a mentor and a tutor for them. What that means is that during the English portion of the English block of the class, you'd be coming to the library and you'd be reading with them either one-on-one or in a group setting and reading their books so that they get a good idea of how reading works. Would you be interested in that? Whoa, yeah, I'd like that. That'd be really cool. So in one fell swoop, I went from being a problem child to being a junior high school student. And in the next several weeks and months, my whole attitude about school turned around. It was no longer a drag. It was no longer something that I dreaded. It was something I got out of bed and went down to school, and yeah, that was cool. So I'd like you to take some things back about this particular talk. The first one is that when we're going to change our thinking, sometimes temporarily we need to change our input. That means we need to take a step back. We need to take a look at the forest and the trees. Then we need to be able to stop, smell the roses, count our blessings, take a look at where our life is. Sometimes that may be a walk. Sometimes that's a vacation. Sometimes that's going up in the mountains, cutting some wood, building a bonfire, and making some s'mores. Whatever it is, that's an important part about how we change our thinking. The next thing, never assume what you're thinking is what somebody else is thinking about you. We base our behavior on what our input is, and a large part of our input is what we feed ourselves. So if we assume that someone else likes us, dislikes us, loathes us, whatever, we're going to base our behavior upon that. And like I said, Wayne Dyer said, what other people think about us isn't any of my business. And the last thing I'd like you to take from this talk is, and I just went cold. Never underestimate the power of the universe to say, yes, my beloved, I will make it so. You see, when I was 9 years old, and I was sitting in class and I was mouthing prayers. I don't understand why I have to do this. Please, I wish I didn't have to do this. The universe heard. The universe heard through my parents. The universe heard through my teachers, through the counselor, and through Mr. Mike Van Pelt. And the universe moved to make things work for me, through me, and as me. So the universe's answer to all of our prayers is, yes, my beloved, I will make it so. Paulo Coelho puts it very succinctly. When we make a decision to change, the universe conspires to make it happen. So if I can have the practitioners surround the room. We're going to conspire with the universe to know that all there is spirit. All there is mind. And that mind plays with us, through us, and as us. It experiences all there is through our eyes and hears the symphonies through our ears. It is constantly creating and evolving with us to express itself in the highest and best form. And we are one with that spirit. We are part and parcel of that creation. And because we are, we can speak our word into law, knowing that it must come back to us fulfilled. And so I speak my word of creation. The joy of creation and evolving into a higher spiritual plane, into that thing that says, yes, my beloved, I will make it so. Through every prayer and every thought, every action and every interaction, I proclaim, yes, my beloved, I will make it so. And I know that my dreams are the inspiration of spirit. I know that all that we want, have, and are easily, effortlessly, and perfectly done right now, in this moment. In this moment, we accept it and we are it. In deepest gratitude and thanksgiving, we express this appreciation for the knowledge of the word and law and love. And together we say, and so it is.